Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about clasp knives. What the heck is a clasp knife, and what is Superman waiting on the John for? Well, I guess we can figure that out. But we're going to try to unravel that, what is and what is not a clasp knife, and where that term came from, and what does it really pertain to. So if you'd like to know more about that, go ahead and check out the video. Oh no, I can't believe you have cavities. What is a cavity?
A cavity is dark.
It's dark?
And brown. It's brown, not dark.
Did the dentist show you a cavity?
Yeah, there's 2 cavities in here.
Wow. Have you been eating candy? Yeah. All right, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Welcome to all my viewers. Today we got a pretty cool subject. It's one I've thought about a few times at least. And as I got into knife collecting, I kept seeing this term clasp knife, but it's really never defined. And so it's kind of an ambiguous term. But generally what they're referring to in a clasp knife is a large style knife that has a curved or banana shape and comes to a point. And that was the traditional kind of definition of a clasp. And so if you look at the definition of a clasp, it's a piece of metal that comes together that holds 2 things together. And so you're using a clasp on something to attach it to another thing. Literally, if you think about a jewelry clasp, right, on necklaces, that's a clasp. But in the industrial age, that definition was greatly expanded to include all kinds of different metal binders that were used to hold things together. And so as time has changed, that definition has changed. That is certainly true with knives. And so as you look at these knives, discount the modern folders, just look at the older folders. So this design we consider as a Texas toothpick, powder horn, a lot of different names for this. It is a serpentine design, not really a curved design, but it does point up. And actually, Goins lists these in the clasp category. And if you can look at this, is a Navajo style Rough Rider Reserve. Looks a lot like old 1700 pocket knives, and these were considered clasp knives. There is a slight serpentine design here, and it almost looks flat, but it is curved throughout this. It curves in, and then it curves out, and then comes up in a tip. And so traditionally, that's what it was assigned to. But you can see here, this little knife, it's 3.5 inches. We would still consider this a clasp style knife because of the handle. So it's, even though generally you're looking at a hunting type knife, a large folding knife that would be used like for hunting. And these knives are considered clasp knives by Bernard Levin, and they're not completely flat, so they look flat, but if you put a straight edge on there, you can see, it's not straight. And so from here to here, there's a little tiny bow, you can see light in there, and then that differs with the brand and type of knife that you're looking at. These knives here are much more curved and more like a clasp knife from the 16 or 1700s would be considered more of a curve here, almost like a bow trapper, and it just fits your hand perfectly. It's one of the most endearing type handles that you can find. So entering the 20th century, a lot of these type of really curvy type handles are going away in the 1800s, and more knives are looking like this, flat, and this came along in 1964, but this one came along in 1922, and it is not completely flat. So if you put a straight edge on here, it comes in and comes out here and comes over, and we would call that a saddle horn because it comes to a point here, but it's also classified more and more as a clasp knife. Big folding hunter type style knives that have these the heads of the knives that curved up, whether they're sharp or not. So yeah, these come up to a point, but more and more these are becoming clasp knives. You can see it comes up to a point too. It's just a wider point. And so then you start getting into semantics. So Levin does not include this style knife as a clasp knife, but a lot of people, a lot of writers, knife reviewers are classifying these as clasp knife. And, I think that's okay. Definitions change over time. This is a cowstrom. You can see that rounded edge, and then it comes up here, and then it has a little tiny point. It's just wider here. But to me, the clasp knife, the quintessential clasp knife, has this curved back that fits into your hand. Really nice. And that takes us into the modern knives. So if you look at modern knives, I mean, this is a very prominent design right here where it bows over and it comes up. Again, you don't have a really sharp point like you do on a Navaja or a toothpick, but you can see the point there. And it's just a little narrower, and more people classify these as a clasp knife because they're big, so you have a big knife there, and you have that clasp style handle, so they classify them as a clasp knife generally. And you see that a lot. Here's a Cold Steel, same type of design. Here's a Civivi, same type of design, and all on fairly large knives. This razors in particular have this banana style shape that was probably the original clasp design, and gravity knives had this general shape here. This is a gravity knife, by the way, and you would hold on to gravity knives. Usually had a tang, and you can hold on to it or strap sinew around it to keep it straight and use the knife. But same type of design, very, very old design, probably been used since men were making knives. And it's just, definition is changing just a little. But to make it more confusing, you look at knives like these, and these are universally called British Army clasp knives. And that's because that's what the English called them. They were clasp knives, and not necessarily that's an easy open regular jack shape to that. You see, this one's a little different, but both different knives, both different patterns, but both called a clasp knife. So it's not something that's a definitive type of thing, I think, for a pattern. And I think it's okay if people are calling these clasp knives. The term was really meant for knives like this with a pointed tip. But like I said, definitions change. Certainly the way they used it in the 1600s is different than they used it in the 1800s. They were different knives, different style knives. They were smaller knives. But overall, a clasp knife is a fairly large knife, 4 inches or better. You could consider a trapper a clasp knife. If you look at that closely, a trapper is not straight across. It has a curved back, and you can see the gap right there. If you line it on the other side, so there's a curve to this trapper, and it curves up. Does not come to a point, though. So Bernard Levin didn't include trappers as being clasp knife. A lot of people do nowadays, though. I don't think it's a big deal. I think as long as you're referring to a larger hunting style knife, or even if these aren't hunting knives, but they're large knives, and they have that curved back that come up to a point, and you know, I would be okay calling this a clasp knife. And some people certainly do. All right, I'm going to wrap this video up. A clasp, they've had jewelry clasp around since the Bronze Age. And so it's two pieces of metal that come together to attach two things. So where did that name come from? I think in the industrial age, once we got the back spring on knives, that you have two things that come together like a clasp. And that's where you get a clasp knife. That's the most logical description and reason why they're called clasp knives. So you're probably looking at a date for that term. Specifically talking about clasp knives, not clasp, but clasp knives, you know, you're probably looking at a date around the 17th century, late 16th century, when the backspring really started getting popular and taking off, maybe a little earlier. You can find it in some writings back to the 1700s, but not further back than that. And I showed a bunch of pictures for you of different styles of knives. These are all listed in a clasp knife history. And so that's how those pictures applied to this video. All right, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate your support. Hope you have a wonderful week. Don't work too hard. Stay out of the rain. Have a good time. Remember, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free.